I can still smell the roasted turkey whenever I close my eyes. That Thanksgiving evening, I stood in my mother's kitchen, the same kitchen where my father used to sneak me extra slices of pie when I was a boy. For 6 years after he passed, I paid every mortgage bill, every repair, every unexpected expense for this house. I thought I was holding our family together. But that night, in front of 40 relatives and neighbors, my mother screamed something that shattered everything I believed about love and sacrifice. Before I share what happened next, I would love to know where you are watching from today. Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you have ever given everything to someone who only saw you as a convenience, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. This story might feel painfully familiar. Now let me take you back 6 years to the day everything started. My father's name was Frank. He worked as an electrician for 30 years, waking up before dawn, coming home after dark, slowly paying off the house he built with his own hands. I remember him telling me once, sitting on the back porch with a cold beer in his hand, that a man's duty is to protect his family. He said those words with such conviction that they carved themselves into my soul. When I was 26 years old, my father collapsed at a job site. Heart attack. Instant. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was already gone. I did not even get to say goodbye. At the funeral, my mother Donna could barely stand. She leaned on me the entire service, sobbing into my shoulder. My older sister Megan stood on the other side with her husband Derek, but they seemed more concerned about the catering arrangements than our father lying in a casket. After the burial, my mother pulled me aside. Her eyes were red and swollen, her voice trembling. She said, "Chad, I cannot lose this house. Your father put everything into it. 30 years of his life. If we lose it, we lose him." I understood. At least I thought I did. At that time, there was still about $120,000 left on the mortgage. My mother had not worked since Megan was born. She had no savings, no income, nothing except Social Security that barely covered groceries. So I made a decision that would define the next 6 years of my life. I told her I would take care of everything. She hugged me so tight I could feel her heart pounding against my chest. She whispered that she would pay me back when she got back on her feet. I believed her. I wanted to believe her. What I did not fully understand then was that my sister Megan had never been expected to contribute anything. She was 4 years older than me, married at 24 to Derek, a car salesman with a flashy smile and an inconsistent paycheck. They had 2 kids, and according to my mother, that meant Megan already had enough on her plate. So the financial responsibility fell entirely on me. Every month I paid $1,400 for the mortgage, $200 for homeowner's insurance. When the roof started leaking 2 winters ago, I paid $8,000 to fix it. When the heating system broke down, another $5,500. When Megan said she needed a car to drive the kids to school, I lent her $12,000 that she never mentioned again. When my mother needed dental work, $3,000 from my account. Over 6 years, I estimate I spent more than $150,000 on a family that never once asked how I was doing. To afford all this, I lived in a tiny studio apartment on the outskirts of the city. I drove the same car for 12 years, a sedan with rust spots, and a passenger window that did not roll down properly. I never took vacations. I never bought new clothes unless the old ones fell apart. I worked overtime constantly, weekends included, just to keep my head above water. But I told myself it was worth it. Family is everything, right? That is what my father taught me. That is what I believed. 3 months before that Thanksgiving, I visited my mother's house on a Sunday afternoon. As I walked through the front door, I heard laughter from the living room. Derek was there showing off a brand new watch. I later learned it cost $4,000. Megan sat beside him carrying a designer handbag I recognized from magazine advertisements. At least $2,000. I asked casually where they got the money for such nice things. Derek grinned and said my mom helped them out. He said she mentioned the house stuff was covered anyway, so she had some extra to spare. My stomach dropped. The money my mother claimed she was saving. The money I assumed would eventually go toward paying me back she had been giving to Megan and Derek for luxury items. Meanwhile, I was eating canned soup for dinner 3 times a week. I did not say anything that day. I swallowed my anger and drove back to my studio apartment in silence. 1 month before Thanksgiving, I called my mother to confirm I would be coming for the holiday dinner. Before I could even ask how she was feeling, she interrupted me. "Are you bringing the check? The property tax is due next week." That was it. No hello, how are you, how is work? Just the check. I told her I would bring it. After I hung up, I sat in my apartment for a long time staring at the wall. Something inside me had cracked, just a small fracture, but I could feel it spreading. 1 week before Thanksgiving, I did something I had never told anyone about. I finalized the purchase of my own house. It was small 3 bedrooms in a quiet town about 40 minutes away from my mother's place. I had been secretly saving whatever scraps I could for years, and I finally had enough for a 20% down payment. As I signed the papers, I felt a strange mix of pride and guilt. Pride because I had accomplished something entirely on my own. Guilt because I knew this meant I would eventually have to stop funding my mother's lifestyle. I decided I would tell my family at Thanksgiving dinner. I imagined them being happy for me, maybe even proud. I thought perhaps this would be the moment they finally saw me as more than just the person who pays the bills. I could not have been more wrong. Thanksgiving morning arrived cold and gray, the kind of November day that makes you want to stay under the covers. But I got up early, put on a decent sweater, and drove 45 minutes to my mother's house. When I arrived at 10 in the morning, the kitchen was already alive with activity. The smell of roasting turkey filled every room. I brought a bottle of red wine and a bouquet of flowers for my mother. She took the flowers without looking at me and set them on the counter, half hidden behind a stack of napkins. "Did you bring the property tax check?" she asked immediately. I told her I thought we could discuss it after dinner. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but she did not push further. She simply turned back to the stove and continued stirring gravy. In the living room, I found my grandmother Louise sitting in her favorite armchair by the window. She was 84 years old, frail and thin, but her eyes still sparkled when she saw me. She reached out her wrinkled hand and squeezed mine. "My handsome grandson," she said softly. "It is so good to see you." That small moment of warmth was the only genuine affection I would receive that entire day. Megan and Derek arrived around noon. Megan immediately complained about the long drive, even though it was only 20 minutes from their apartment. Derek walked in wearing an expensive leather jacket, scanning the room like he was evaluating property values. He shook my hand with that salesman grip, firm, but somehow condescending, and glanced down at my shoes. "Still wearing those old sneakers, huh?" he said with a smirk. Then he walked away without waiting for a response. By 4 in the afternoon, the house was packed. 40 people filled the living room and dining area, aunts, uncles, cousins, neighbors, old friends of my mother. 3 long tables had been arranged to accommodate everyone. I found myself seated at the far end of the smallest table near the kitchen door beside my grandmother. Megan and Derek sat at the main table with my mother positioned right in the center, where everyone could see them. The dinner conversation flowed around me like a river I was not part of. Derek dominated much of the discussion, boasting about some big car sale he had closed recently. My mother beamed at him and announced to the table that Derek was such a wonderful provider for the family. People nodded and raised their glasses. No one mentioned me. No one mentioned who actually kept the roof over everyone's heads. At one point, I tried to interject. I had been waiting for the right moment to share my news about the new house. I cleared my throat and started to speak. "I have some news I would like to share," I began. But before I could continue, Megan cut in loudly. "Oh, Mom," she said, "I forgot to tell you. Derek wants to redo our kitchen. Can you help us out?" My mother nodded enthusiastically. "Of course, sweetie. We will figure something out." My words died in my throat. I looked down at my plate and continued eating in silence. Later, one of my aunts turned to me and asked if I was still single. Before I could answer, Derek jumped in with a loud laugh. "Chad is married to his laptop," he said. "No time for women." The table erupted in laughter. I forced a smile, gripping my fork so hard my knuckles turned white. Dessert was served around 7:30. Pumpkin pie, my father's favorite. I was taking my first bite when my mother suddenly stood up and tapped her glass with a spoon. "Everyone," she announced, "I have something to say." The room fell silent. I assumed she was going to thank everyone for coming, maybe share a memory about my father. I was wrong. As you all know, she began keeping this house has been very hard since Frank passed away. I have been struggling, and I need more support. She paused, and then her gaze locked onto me. "Chad," she said, her voice turning sharp, "you have been falling behind. The property tax is overdue, and next year I expect the monthly payments to increase. The roof might need more work." I felt every pair of eyes in the room shift toward me. "Mom," I said calmly, "I paid for the roof last year, and I have never missed a single payment." Her face twisted with anger. She took a step closer to me. "Do not interrupt me," she snapped. The room went completely silent. Even the children stopped fidgeting. Then she unleashed everything. "You think you are so generous?" she shouted, her finger pointing directly at my face. "You think paying a little mortgage makes you some kind of saint? Your sister has children. She needs a new car, a bigger house. And what do you have? Nothing. No wife, no kids, nothing to show for your entire life." Her voice rose to a scream. "So listen to me carefully. Pay the mortgage, pay the taxes, pay whatever this family needs, or disappear. We do not need a son who cannot even do the bare minimum." 40 people stared at me. Some looked at the floor, embarrassed. Others watched with morbid curiosity. My grandmother trembled in her seat, whispering for my mother to stop. No one defended me. Not one person. And then Derek stood up. He walked over and clapped his hand on my shoulder in a mockingly sympathetic gesture. "Hey, buddy," he said loudly. "Do not take it too hard." He turned to the crowd with a theatrical grin. "Let us see how he survives without us. This guy does not know how the real world works. We have been carrying him emotionally for years." Megan laughed. A few others chuckled nervously. Something inside me shifted. Not broke. Shifted. Like tectonic plates finding a new position after an earthquake. I looked around the room at all those faces. Then I looked at my mother, her eyes cold and expectant. Finally, I looked at the framed photograph of my father on the wall, his kind smile frozen in time. He once told me to take care of my family. But he never told me to let them destroy me. I stood up slowly. I did not yell. I did not cry. I did not explain. I simply said, "Thank you for making everything clear." Then I grabbed my coat from the hook by the door and walked out into the cold November night. Behind me, I heard my mother screaming, "Where are you going? We are not done." I did not look back. The drive to my new house took 40 minutes. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, not from fear, but from the overwhelming sensation of release. 6 years of pressure, of obligation, of silent resentment. All of it was finally breaking free. When I pulled into the driveway of my small 3-bedroom house in that quiet town, I sat in the car for a long time. The house was dark, empty, completely mine. No one could take it from me. No one could demand anything here. I unlocked the front door, turned on a single lamp, and sat down on the bare hardwood floor. There was no furniture yet, just boxes I had started to move in. And for the first time in 6 years, I cried. Not from sadness, but from relief. It felt like setting down a weight I did not realize was crushing me. That night, I made a list. I wrote down every expense I had been covering for my family. Mortgage, canceled. Home insurance, canceled. Financial support for Megan, canceled. Everything, canceled. I took a photograph of that list and saved it on my phone as a reminder of the moment I chose myself. The next morning, Friday, I called my bank and stopped the automatic mortgage payments to my mother's house. I contacted the insurance company and removed my name from the policy. Then I blocked 3 phone numbers, my mother, Megan, and Derek. On Saturday, Megan sent me an email since she could not reach me by phone. "What is wrong with you?" she wrote. "Mom is crying." I did not respond. I spent the day unpacking boxes and arranging my new living room. By midweek, relatives started calling. I let every call go to voicemail. The only person I responded to was Uncle Ray, my father's younger brother. He sent a simple text message. "I understand, nephew. Take your time." I replied, "Thank you, Uncle Ray. I am okay." On Saturday, exactly 1 week after Thanksgiving, my mother showed up at my workplace. She had somehow found the address through a mutual acquaintance. The receptionist called me to say a woman was in the lobby demanding to see me. I told the receptionist to inform her I was in a meeting, and that I would be in meetings for the rest of my life. My mother waited in the lobby for 2 hours. Then she left. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, the first mortgage payment was missed. The bank sent my mother a notice. Suddenly, she needed to find $1,400 she did not have. She called Megan for help. Megan called Derek. Derek said they had their own bills and could not contribute. Megan tried emailing me again this time, with a longer message explaining that our mother did not really mean what she said, that everyone was under stress, that I was overreacting. I deleted the email without replying. By the 4th week, the heating system in my mother's house broke down. It was an old house and things broke often. Without me to pay for repairs, the problem went unaddressed. My grandmother Louise, still living there, had to bundle up in extra blankets just to stay warm. Derek refused to help. "Not my house, not my problem," he told Megan. 6 weeks after Thanksgiving, the bank sent a foreclosure warning. My mother had fallen too far behind on payments. Panic set in. She reached out to other relatives begging for assistance. But by now, word had spread through the family. People started asking questions. "Wait," one of my aunts said during a phone call with my mother. "Chad was paying for everything this whole time. I thought you had savings from Frank's pension." The truth unraveled quickly. My mother's carefully constructed image began to crumble. People realized that for 6 years, I had been the invisible foundation, holding everything together while being treated like an afterthought. Derek and Megan suddenly found themselves under scrutiny too. If Chad was paying all the bills, people asked, where was your money going? Designer bags, expensive watches. The family dynamic shifted. Some relatives began reaching out to me with apologies. Others simply went quiet, embarrassed by their own silence during that Thanksgiving dinner. 2 months later, my mother wrote me a letter. She did not have my new address, so she gave it to Uncle Ray to deliver. I opened it at my kitchen table. Her handwriting was shaky, the paper slightly crumpled. She wrote that she was sorry if she hurt me. She said things had been hard since my father died. She explained that she never meant to make me feel unappreciated. And then at the end, she asked if I would consider resuming the mortgage payments. She was not truly apologizing. She was negotiating. I wrote her a letter in response and asked Uncle Ray to deliver it. Mom, I wrote for 6 years. I gave everything I had. You gave me a front row seat to watch you love my sister more. That Thanksgiving night, you did not just yell at me in front of 40 people. You showed me exactly where I stood in this family. And that place was nowhere. I am not going to pay anymore. Not because I cannot afford it. Because I finally understand that my love was never going to be enough for you. And that is okay. I have learned to be enough for myself. The house is yours to figure out. So is the mortgage. I wish you well. I signed my name, folded the letter, and handed it to Uncle Ray. 3 months later, my mother sold the house. She had no other choice. The proceeds barely covered the remaining debt, leaving her with almost nothing. Megan and Derek reluctantly took her in. Their apartment was small, only 2 bedrooms. My mother slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. According to Uncle Ray, arguments erupted almost daily. Derek stopped bragging about his big sales. Megan stopped posting cheerful photos on social media. And me, I lived quietly in my own home, finally at peace. The first 3 months after I walked away were not easy. I would wake up at 3 in the morning staring at the ceiling, asking myself whether I had done the right thing. Sometimes I imagined my father looking down at me, wondering if he would be disappointed. I found myself reaching for my phone to call my mother, out of habit, out of guilt. Every time I stopped myself. Not because I hated her, but because I needed to learn what life felt like without that constant weight. Eventually, I started seeing a therapist. Her name was Dr. Patricia Walsh, a calm woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. For the first time in my life, I told someone the full story. Every payment, every sacrifice, every moment of being overlooked. When I finished, she looked at me for a long moment. Chad, she said, you did not abandon your family. You stopped abandoning yourself. That single sentence changed something inside me. I carried it with me like a talisman. Slowly, I rebuilt. At work, I stopped volunteering for every overtime shift. I focused on doing my job well during regular hours. 6 months later, I received a promotion, my first in years. A colleague told me I seemed lighter, like something heavy had been lifted off my shoulders. At home, I painted the walls myself, a soft gray-blue that felt calming. I planted a small apple tree in the backyard. I bought furniture that I chose not because it was cheap, but because I liked it. Uncle Ray visited often. We would grill steaks on the back patio and talk about my father, sharing memories I had almost forgotten. Your dad would be proud, Uncle Ray told me one evening. He would want you to be happy. He never wanted you to be a martyr. I also made new friends. My neighbors, a retired couple named George and Betty, invited me over for coffee. They knew nothing about my past, and I liked it that way. With them, I was just Chad, the quiet software engineer who moved in down the street. 1 year after that Thanksgiving, I received a call from Megan. Our grandmother Louise was in the hospital. Her heart was failing. I drove to the hospital that afternoon. When I arrived, I saw my mother and Megan in the waiting room. We did not speak. I simply walked past them and into my grandmother's room. She was so small in that hospital bed surrounded by beeping machines. But when she saw me, her face brightened. She reached for my hand, her grip weak but warm. "You are a good boy," she whispered. "You always were." I held her hand and let the tears fall. It was the first time in years that anyone in my family had made me feel seen. Grandma Louise passed away 2 weeks later. I attended the funeral but stayed in the back. After the service, Megan approached me hesitantly. "Chad." She started, but could not finish the sentence. I nodded. "Take care, Megan," I said. Then I walked to my car and drove home. I did not forgive them, but I also did not hold on to hatred. Forgiveness, I realized, was not about them anyway. It was about freeing myself from the anchor of resentment. Over time, I learned 3 lessons that I carry with me every day. First, love is not self-destruction. If you have to burn yourself to keep someone else warm, that is not family. That is a trap dressed up in obligation. Second, silence can be the most powerful response. I did not need to yell or argue or prove myself. I just needed to walk away and let my absence speak for itself. Third, boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are doors to protect what matters most: your peace, your health, your sense of self. Today, I sit on my back porch watching the apple tree I planted starting to blossom. It is small, still young, but it is growing, just like me. I think about my father often. He told me to take care of my family, and in the end, I did. I took care of the most important member, myself. If you are watching this and you are stuck in a relationship where your giving is never enough, where your sacrifices are invisible, where your love is taken for granted, I want you to know something. You deserve to be loved without losing yourself in the process. You deserve to be more than a checkbook or a safety net. You deserve peace. Now I have a question for you. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved in order to protect yourself? What gave you the strength to finally say enough? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one. If this story touched you, please hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it today. Thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you find the courage to choose yourself just like I did. Take care of yourselves. And remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is to love yourself first.